Before we jump into this episode, I wanted to make sure that you knew about my 5-day 7-figure business school. This is an opportunity to spend 5 days with me to be able to learn the blueprint to growing a 7-figure education consulting business. During these 5 days, I'm going to be teaching you the psychology of a millionaire. We'll talk through how to identify that $1 million problem in your business. I'll help you package your offers as well as the pricing. I'll teach you my 7-figure sales process and help you identify the leads to pitch by the end of the 5 days so that way you can start making money immediately. This is a mind-blowing opportunity that you won't even believe that it's completely free. So in the show notes, you have the link to be able to sign up for my upcoming 5-day business school, and I look forward to seeing you there. You're gonna have to really get in the thick of your business and be able to execute in order to grow, to be able to get to that vision of a soft life. As a former teacher, I don't believe that you have to sacrifice your purpose in order to get paid. If anybody deserves to be a millionaire, it's an educator. I'm Dr. Erica Jordan Thomas, and you're listening to 7-Figure Educator. Welcome back to another episode of the 7-Figure Educator podcast. My name's Dr. Erica Jordan Thomas. I'm a former teacher, former principal, Harvard grad turned full-time entrepreneur. I'm CEO and founder of EJT Education Group, and I run a 7-figure education consulting business. During this episode, I wanted to talk through the 3 seasons of a hard life in a 7-figure business. I wanted to have this conversation because there's some narrative that's out here in the entrepreneur space of living a soft life where it's run your business and have this newfound freedom, which you absolutely do have. And when we're talking about growing and scaling a 7-figure education consulting business, there are going to be seasons of your business and there are going to be hard seasons of business. And I want to normalize the conversation around what feels like the hard life seasons of business that are actually a necessary part of the journey in order to grow your business to and through the 7-figure mark. And so I've identified 3 different hard life seasons, meaning these are just 3 phases of business once you've crossed the 7-figure mark, and some of them might even happen before the 7-figure mark, that are necessary for you to go through in order to grow your business. So the first hard life season is the shedding season. So this is a season of business where you're going to have to shed a lot of things. You're going to have to leave a lot of things in the past in order to move forward. And when I think about the journey of growing a 7-figure business, oftentimes when you're growing your business to a particular point that you can only envision at that point of your business. So let me give you an example. I know you're listening to this episode, and if you felt like you found your community, well, I want you to take the next step to join our community on Facebook. I have a free Facebook group, other Black education consultants just like you, and we're talking about proposals. We're talking about the next opportunity. People are collaborating and finding contracts together. It's an amazing, beautiful space that we've been able to curate, and I want to invite you to join. So go ahead and click the link in the show notes to be able to request to join my Facebook group, and I look forward to engaging with you there. When I first started my business, I didn't have a vision of 7 figures. I had a vision of 6 figures and a couple of 6 figures. So I was building my business from the vision of a couple of 6 figures. And then when I hit a couple of 6 figures, then I started considering 7 figures. And when I had that realization, now I'm building towards a 7-figure business. And now that I'm here at a 7-figure business, now I'm building for an 8-figure business. So most people that are running businesses, that are building businesses, you're building a business from the purview of your beliefs. And so if you believe that your next stage of business is 7 figures, that's what you're going to build from. If you don't yet believe that, you're going to build from whatever vision that you can see at this particular moment. And what will happen is when you arrive at what used to be your vision and it now has become your reality, you're going to realize that in order to go further, you're going to have to shed some things. There are some things you put in place in order to get you to that milestone that now you're going to have to leave behind in order to get to the next milestone. And when it comes to shedding season can be partnerships. It could be clients. It could be relationships, professionally and personally. You're going to have to go through a shedding season where you literally just leave things behind in order to move forward. So let me give you an example of what this looks like in my business. I've gone through a shedding season, and in some ways still going through a shedding season, where I had lots of amazing partners that I had relationships with for multiple years, and they played a significant role in my business and supporting my business. And then there came a time where I outgrew the partnership, where my business grew to a point to where it kind of hit a ceiling in that partnership, in that relationship. And usually when that would start to happen, there would be certain indicators that the particular vendor wasn't able to serve us in the same way that they were able to serve when we were a smaller business. So they would either start to miss deadlines or be late on deadlines. They might start missing some details because now the complexity of the work has grown. And if they don't have the human capital capacity to be able to now handle bigger projects, more complex work, then now details start going missed. And when those things would happen, I'd have to make a decision as a CEO that it's time to sunset that relationship and find a new vendor. And oftentimes it wasn't a comfortable decision. It was a necessary decision, but these are relationships that I had been engaged in from a business standpoint for multiple years. And it almost kind of seemed as if it was happening at the same time in multiple different vendor relationships, because I had found these vendors around the same time, and now we're starting to sunset at a similar time. And so a shedding season is really thinking critically around what are the relationships that you, at the time that you cultivated that relationship, you cultivated that partnership, it was the right time and the right season. And as your business continues to grow and develop, you've outgrown that relationship. And in order to move forward, you're going to need a bigger, better partnership. So that's the first season, is the shedding season. I know you're enjoying this episode, but I wanted to pop in really quickly to make sure that you know about my event, 7-Figure Educator Live. It is the only event for Black educators who have a vision of a 7-figure education consulting business, and they are ready to make that vision a reality. You have the opportunity to spend 3 days in person with me and my team in Atlanta, Georgia, and I guarantee this is a transformative experience you do not want to miss. So to grab your ticket, you're going to need to head to 7figureeducator.com. Again, that's the number 7figureeducator.com, and grab your ticket before the price goes up. The link is also in the show notes. Go ahead and click, and I'll see you there. The second season that I am enlisting under this umbrella of the hard life seasons of business, it's the break to build season. This break to build season is where, in order to grow, you actually have to break your business. And what do I mean by break your business? I mean, the operational infrastructure that you've built in your business is now starting to serve as a glass ceiling to you being able to grow. Where operationally, you might have 6-figure operations, but if you have a 7-figure business, then you're going to start to feel some tension. Or even a 7-figure business with 7-figure operations, if you have goals of being an 8-figure business, you're going to have to break your business, break your operations, and rebuild your operations in order to keep growing. And I think the really important thing to reframe when you're in this break to build season is breaking. It's not comfortable. It's very uncomfortable. And I think it's really easy to paint this narrative that breaking is a bad thing. That how could I have better planned for this? What could I have done to avoid this? When really breaking is an indication of growth. So if you're not breaking your business, you're not growing, right? Like if everything is just functioning on all cylinders when you're growing from 6 to 7 figures to multiple 7 figures, that typically doesn't happen. Like typically you build at 6 figures and then you have to break your business to get to 7. And then when you get to 7, you have to break your business again to keep growing. So you have to anticipate that break to build season where you literally have to break your business first in order to push through to the next level. And sometimes breaking your business looks like you're going to have to redefine your business model. Of the business model that got you to 6 figures is not the same business model that's going to get you to 7 figures, and it's not going to be the same business model that'll get you to 8 figures. I often would hear some people say that in order to grow your business, you just do more of the same thing. And that's not always the case, where sometimes you actually have to revamp your offers. You have to redefine who your target client is. You're actually going to have to shift your business model in order to keep growing and go to the next level. So that's the second of our 3 types of hard life seasons, is the break to build. And the third and final hard life season I wanted to share is the implementation dip season. So I was first introduced to this term, the implementation dip, through just my own studies and education, studying around change management. This was a term that I learned and came across, and it comes from an author by the name of Michael Fullan, who wrote the book Leading in a Culture of Change. And in his work, he talks about this concept of the implementation dip. When you are implementing change, that there is actually a season after the implementation of change called the implementation dip, where performance might dip, culture might dip, where your business will dip. When you are implementing a new offer, a new system, a new team, there is a phase called the implementation dip where performance dips. And I think there's this narrative in entrepreneurship that growth is linear, and it has, shout out to my math teachers, of it has a slope of 1 where you're just consistently growing up and up and up, and that it doesn't actually create room or space for the idea that there are going to be seasons of business where in order to move forward, you got to implement something new, and that new is actually going to cause your performance to temporarily dip. But you have to understand that the dip is temporary, right? Because change, like, it takes a while, and not forever, but it does take time for change to actually start growing some roots. We're getting used to the system. We're getting used to the new CRM. We're getting used to the new automations. We're getting used to the new processes. And once we get our hands around the new systems, the new processes, all these new things, performance is going to jump back up. I think this concept is really, really, really important. And it makes me think of another concept of the stages of team, of anytime that you bring teams together, there's different stages that the team has to go through. There's the forming, there's the norming, there's the storming, and then pre-forming. So forming, we formed the team, or we formed the new initiative. The norming is when now we're starting to build new norms and agreements in terms of how we operate together. I think during that norming season is when you're likely to experience an implementation dip, or the beginnings of an implementation dip. And then we start to realize the implementation dip even greater during the storming phase. And then on the other side of storming, though, is performing. And typically you can't get to the performing unless you go through the storm, right? So I really wanted to name these different seasons to help reframe that oftentimes in order to get to the soft life, you're going to have to do some hard work. Like, you're going to have to work hard in order to sit in that soft life, right? And you might be able to temporarily sit in the soft life for a weekend, but if you're really in the business of being able to create drastic freedom for you, your family, and community, you're going to have to really get in the thick of your business and be able to execute in order to grow, to be able to get to that vision of a soft life. Our 3 seasons of a hard life are the shedding season, the build to break season, and the implementation dip. Let me know your thoughts to this conversation. Let me know in the comments your reactions to these different types of seasons. If you've experienced these different types of seasons, what it looks like on the other side. If you're on the other side of it, let folks know that it gets better, to stick with it, and share this episode with a friend, an entrepreneur, educator who would find meaning and value in this episode, because we want to make sure that as many folks are tapped into the conversation as possible. And while you're at it, go ahead and hit the subscribe button button so that way you know when the next episode drops. We drop episodes every single week, and I don't want you to miss out. I'll check you back here on the next episode of the Seven Figure Educator podcast.